He paid for her coffee when her card was declined, not knowing she was a millionaire, hiding from the spotlight. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is now. Subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The morning air in the Sterling Tower lobby thrummed with a current of urgent purpose. Olivia Sterling moved through it, a figure of contained energy, her heels articulating a precise rhythm against the polished marble. The low murmur of professional greetings rippled in her wake, a common sound she rarely registered. Her mind, ever forward-leaning, already navigated the intricate pathways of her day, charting decisions, shaping futures. There was no space for hesitation, only unwavering momentum. She reached the executive cafe, the rich scent of roasted beans a momentary anchor. "Americano, black," she stated, her voice clear, already a beat ahead, envisioning the upcoming meeting. The barista, a young man with practiced quickness, nodded. Olivia reached for her sleek wallet, sliding out the corporate card. The machine responded with a discordant beep, a jarring sound in the cafe's controlled hush. Declined. A faint furrow appeared on her brow, a fleeting mar on her composure. She tried another card, then another. Each attempt met the same abrupt, electronic rejection, the sound growing louder in her ears. A flicker of vexation tightened its grip. This unforeseen snag, this illogical disruption, was an unwelcome intrusion. A gentle presence shifted beside her. She glanced sideways. It was Ethan Vance, one of the security guards. He stood with an unassuming posture, his uniform meticulously neat, his eyes, deep as an evening pond, holding a calm, watchful quality. He had witnessed her brief struggle, the faint flush of frustration that touched her cheeks. Without a single spoken word, he drew out his own wallet, extracting a $5 bill. His hand, capable yet unadorned, extended it toward the barista. "I'll cover it," he murmured, his voice a low, soft current amidst the morning's steady hum. Olivia's gaze snapped to him, surprise momentarily stilling her. Her pride, a tightly wound spring, instinctively recoiled. "Oh no, Mr. Vance, that's quite unnecessary," she began, her tone formal, dismissive. But he offered a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head. "Please," he insisted, his gaze holding hers for a brief, unwavering moment. It was not pity that resided there, but a simple, unadorned kindness, like sunlight touching a cold stone. The barista, accustomed to the unspoken hierarchies of the tower, hesitated only a breath before accepting Ethan's offering. A peculiar warmth spread through Olivia, a sensation both unfamiliar and unsettling. "Thank you," she managed, the words feeling a touch clumsy on her tongue. Her coffee arrived, dark and steaming. As she reached for it, her hand, still harboring a residual tremor of annoyance, brushed the rim. A hot splash darkened the crisp white fabric of her blouse. A soft gasp escaped her lips. Again, Ethan was there. His movements flowed, unthinking. He produced a clean, folded handkerchief from his pocket, simple cotton, meticulously pressed, and offered it to her. "Here," he said, his voice even, devoid of any judgment. She took it, dabbing at the growing stain, a fleeting embarrassment washing over her. His concern was so genuine, so untainted by expectation, it was almost disarming. I apologize for the trouble," she murmured, her eyes meeting his once more. He offered a slight softening of his lips, a subtle curve that reached his eyes. "No trouble at all, Miss Sterling. We all have our days." His words, plain and direct, yet held a gentle acceptance of human imperfection. It was a rare sentiment in the polished, demanding halls of Sterling Tower. She gathered herself, her coffee clutched in one hand, the borrowed handkerchief in the other. "Truly thank you," she repeated, her voice softer than she intended. A desire to say more, to understand the source of this unassuming man's kindness, stirred within her, but the clock urged her onward. The world of urgent emails and high-stakes negotiations pulled her away. She gave him a final fleeting nod, a whisper of appreciation in her eyes, and turned, striding toward the elevators. The precise rhythm of her heels resumed. Ethan watched her depart, the faint trace of a smile still lingering. He saw her vanish behind the closing doors, her presence dissolving into the stream of executives. His gaze remained fixed on the spot where she had stood, then shifted subtly to the stained white fabric of her blouse, and finally to the corporate logo clearly visible on her identification badge. The name Sterling seemed to catch the cafe's soft light. A subtle warmth spread through his chest, a memory stirring from its long, quiet sleep. He knew more than she could ever guess, a truth as clear to him as the scent of morning coffee, a secret held tight within him, like a shadow half seen in dawn's light. The Sterling Tower conference room pulsed with the sterile glow of presentation screens. Olivia Sterling sat at the head of the polished obsidian table, her mind effortlessly navigating complex data streams. The morning's small incident, the simple kindness of the security guard, had receded to a faint echo, replaced by the relentless current of her schedule. She moved with practiced ease through reports, her gaze keen, extracting meaning from dense paragraphs, rendering swift, definitive judgments. Yet a peculiar, almost imperceptible warmth lingered, a soft disruption in her usually unyielding focus. It was the memory of a simple cotton handkerchief. After a blur of back-to-back meetings, the afternoon light, pale and distant, filtered into her spacious office. A stack of resumes, dauntingly thick, awaited her on the desk. This was the final sift for the Aurora Initiative, a new tech venture demanding minds capable of groundbreaking innovation. She worked with her usual exacting efficiency, her fingers gliding through profiles, dismissing most with a swift, decisive flick. Names blurred into a continuous stream, experiences merged. Each resume seemed to trumpet ambition, quantifiable success, a meticulously crafted upward trajectory. Her hand paused mid-stack. A resume felt different beneath her fingertips, perhaps less ostentatious, or simply more direct in its presentation. Ethan Vance. The name resonated faintly from the morning. A security guard? Here? Her brow furrowed slightly. Her eyes quickly scanned the page. Education, unimpeachable. Work history, robust. A clear progression in senior systems engineering roles. Then a gaping chasm. A 3-year span marked only as personal leave. Below it, almost as an afterthought, tucked into a small margin, was a handwritten note in neat, unassuming script. Seeking purpose, not merely position. The words resonated, a small, clear bell tolling softly in her office. Seeking purpose. It defied the usual corporate lexicon, felt genuine, vulnerable, almost a whisper of poetry. A vivid flicker of the morning's cafe scene returned. The calm gaze, the unhesitating outstretched hand, the simple handkerchief. This was that man, the security guard. The image of him, composed amidst her brief disarray, imprinted itself anew upon her mind. Olivia leaned back, a rare, unbidden pause in her relentless day. Why had this particular resume, among hundreds of outwardly flawless ones, captured her attention? She rarely entertained deviations from the expected path. Yet there it was, the employment gap, a glaring red flag in any other context, now felt like a silent mystery she felt a compelling urge to unravel. She picked up her tablet, her fingers moving quickly, almost subconsciously. A discreet search. Ethan Vance, senior systems engineer. She found old articles, brief industry mentions, nothing scandalous, nothing that hinted at impropriety. He'd worked for Chrono Solutions before his mysterious leave. Chrono Solutions. The name stirred a vague familiarity, distant, like a fragment of a half-remembered tune. A subtle ache, a faint discomfort began to surface within her, a sensation she couldn't quite place, as if something important lingered just beyond the edge of her conscious memory. She navigated through news archives, searching for Chrono Solutions around the time of Ethan's departure from the professional world. There were numerous reports of a significant system failure years ago, a catastrophic data loss that severely crippled the company and ultimately led to its quiet acquisition. The articles were clinical, technical, citing a complex cascade of errors, vague references to an internal investigation, and finally the anonymous departure of several key personnel. No blame was overtly assigned to any individual in the public reports, yet the narrative hinted strongly at a desperate corporate scramble to assign fault. Ethan's name remained absent from these public accounts. The focus remained squarely on the system, the recovery efforts, and the subsequent absorption by a larger unnamed entity. The identity of the acquiring company, she recalled from her industry knowledge, remained a closely guarded secret, sealed by layers of non-disclosure agreements. Olivia knew intellectually that large acquisitions often came with buried secrets, especially those involving significant tech failures. It was standard practice to absorb, rebrand, and obscure the less palatable details. She reread Ethan's resume, her gaze lingering on the blank space, those 3 years of profound silence, and the small handwritten note, seeking purpose. It struck her then with an undeniable force. The public narrative of Chrono Solutions' downfall was incomplete, a neatly wrapped package designed to protect corporate interests. Ethan's resume, with its vast, unexplained emptiness, spoke of a different story. The ache of absence grew sharper, no longer vague, but laced with a dawning sense of unspoken possibilities. The true story of Ethan's past, she realized with a dawning clarity, was not in what was overtly stated, but in what was not. It resided in the vast, unexplained emptiness of those silent years, in the unmentioned burden of a company's collapse and the personal cost that followed. It was there, unspoken, like a song caught in the throat, waiting for a listener to truly hear its silent melody. The quiet in Olivia Sterling's office deepened as twilight painted the city skyline in shades of bruised purple and distant gray. Corporate reports receded. Her tablet remained open, bathed in the pale glow of fragmented digital whispers from Chrono Solutions. The stark emptiness of Ethan Vance's 3 silent years now hummed with an unbearable weight in her mind. Driven by a compelling urge, Olivia pushed deeper, past the public records, seeking the human story that lay buried beneath layers of technical jargon. She unearthed an obscure industry forum, then a digitized archive of a small-town newspaper from years past, a local chronicle from near Chrono Solutions' original campus. The headlines, once stark, now felt like faded echoes of a forgotten world. She found it, a small, almost overlooked obituary, then a follow-up article detailing a fire, a residential blaze tragically linked to a faulty smart home system, a system developed by Chrono Solutions. A sudden catch tightened in her chest. The pieces began to interlock with chilling precision. The system failure, the data loss, the corporate collapse, it was not merely a series of abstract technical misfortunes. It had bled into real lives. The fire, the victims, Ethan Vance's wife and young daughter. The words on the screen blurred, then sharpened. Each detail a precise, painful cut to her practiced detachment. She saw grainy, mournful photographs, a woman's gentle smile, a child with bright, curious eyes, and Ethan, younger, his face etched with an unbearable grief at a small, private memorial. The official reports had labeled it a critical vulnerability, a cascading failure. Public narrative centered on corporate responsibility, data integrity, market fallout. But for Ethan, it was the raw, unadulterated devastation of a life ripped irrevocably apart. He had, with an almost unimaginable grace, vanished into the silent dignity of his sorrow. Olivia felt a profound jolt. This was not merely an employment gap. It was a deep, unhealing scar. He hadn't sought pity. He hadn't embellished the truth. He hadn't even detailed the agonizing reason for his absence. Just personal leave and seeking purpose. The sheer restraint of his suffering, the absence of any self-serving narrative, struck her with an almost physical force. He hadn't fought the public narrative, hadn't defended his name. He had simply absorbed the blow, a silent witness to a tragedy beyond technical repair. She scrolled further, finding anonymous local comments, whispers about Ethan's character. Good man, took everything so hard. Lost his whole world, just disappeared. Never blamed anyone, just carried it. These simple words, offered without fanfare, painted a picture of immense, contained strength. A man who, despite unimaginable loss, chose not to lash out, not to seek vengeance, but simply to endure. Her corporate mind, so keenly honed to analyze risk and reward, struggled to categorize this. There was no quantifiable metric for such deep integrity, no profit margin to be gained from such quiet dignity. Yet it was undeniably powerful. It was the inverse of the cutthroat world she inhabited, a raw, unvarnished humanity that both humbled and profoundly unsettled her. A memory flashed, vivid and piercing. Ethan's calm eyes in the cafe, his hand extending the $5 bill, the simple handkerchief. That unassuming presence, that act of kindness, was now imbued with a terrible, beautiful weight. He had offered solace to a stranger, a CEO, while carrying a universe of pain within him. Olivia rose from her desk, walking to the panoramic window. The city lights twinkled below, a vast, indifferent tapestry of ambition. She had always seen the world as a complex machine, people as mere cogs in its relentless turning. Ethan Vance shattered that perception. He was not a cog, nor a problem to be solved, but a testament to the resilient spirit that endures beyond calculation. Her view of him had irrevocably shifted. He was no longer just a security guard who performed a small kindness. He was a man forged in the crucible of profound sorrow, emerging with a quiet power that eclipsed any corporate achievement. He was a survivor, not just of a tragedy, but of the crushing weight of public perception, silently choosing dignity over defense. He was like a familiar face seen anew under starlight, his true contours revealed in a breathtaking, previously unseen light. This truth, delicate yet piercing, had transformed her understanding, and with it, something quiet within herself had irrevocably changed. The city outside Olivia Sterling's window shimmered with the distant promise of evening. But within her office, a different light held sway. The pale, revealing glow of her tablet. The corporate records, once a source of detached information, now felt like fragile parchment holding etched memories, both her own and those of Sterling Tech. The name of the acquiring entity, once a meticulously guarded secret, now echoed with a terrible clarity in her mind. Sterling Tech. Years ago, in a deliberate, calculated move, her own company had absorbed Chrono Solutions, burying its failures and its name under a fresh coat of corporate paint. This was the unseen thread, the half-forgotten past she had dismissed as mere business, now woven tragically into Ethan Vance's silent suffering. The stark precision of the acquisition documents contrasted sharply with the raw humanity of Ethan's loss. She recalled vague references in old board meetings, legacy system cleanup, patent consolidation. Never the human cost, never the fire, the family, the man who had quietly borne the world's blame. The realization settled heavy in her chest. Her company, her very legacy, was inextricably intertwined with the event that had shattered Ethan's life. A knot tightened in her stomach. This transcended a mere ethical dilemma. It was a profound reckoning. To extend an offer to Ethan, knowing what she now knew, felt like inviting a ghost into the meticulously structured halls of Sterling Tower. Yet, to not offer him a chance, to let his unassuming resilience and profound potential remain untapped, felt like a deeper betrayal, a perpetuation of the same corporate blindness that had once swept his tragedy under the rug. Her hand hovered over the rejection pile, then moved. She shifted Ethan's resume to a new folder on her screen. Aurora Initiative, finalists. It was an act born not of logical calculation, but of an unyielding conviction. She saw not just a gap, but a crucible. She recognized not a flaw, but an enduring spirit, a contained strength that resonated deeply, awakening a dormant understanding within herself. The next morning, the summons went out. Ethan Vance, the man who guarded the tower's entrance, found himself escorted to its executive floors, a journey he had made countless times, but never in this capacity. He moved with his usual measured calm, his senses acutely aware of the subtle shift in atmosphere, the curious glances from colleagues he usually only nodded to. Olivia met him in a smaller, sunlit conference room, not the grand expanse of her main office. She stood by the window, her back to the city, allowing the soft light to illuminate her profile. When he entered, her gaze met his, not the distant assessment of a CEO, but something more direct, a hint of vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. "Mr. Vance," she began, her voice calm, devoid of its usual brisk authority. "Thank you for coming." "Ms. Sterling," he replied, his voice a low, even murmur. He took the seat she indicated, his hands resting lightly on the polished table. He waited, a reservoir of patience. Olivia took a breath, the air suddenly thick with unspoken history. "I've reviewed your resume. Your technical background is exceptional, and your handwritten note, seeking purpose, not merely position, resonated deeply." She paused, watching him intently. He offered nothing, no overt reaction, just that calm, observant gaze. It was a testament to his profound composure, or perhaps to a weary acceptance of life's circuitous turns. "I understand the personal leave section," she continued, her voice softer, more tentative, probing the delicate boundary of his past. "I've done some research." The air in the room seemed to still. Ethan's eyes, deep as an evening pond, flickered, a subtle shift in their depths, a glimpse of recognition, perhaps, that his silence had been seen. "I lost my family," he stated, his voice flat, devoid of self-pity. "And a part of myself, there was no personal leave from that." The directness of his words, unadorned and stark, struck her anew. He offered no further explanation, no attempt to justify the void. Olivia nodded slowly. "I know, and I recognize the circumstances. The system failure at Chrono Solutions. The fire." Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "The loss." She looked directly at him, offering an empathy that transcended their corporate roles, acknowledging a shared painful truth. "I also know you implicitly bore the public brunt of that, to protect others." His eyes widened, a brief, raw vulnerability flashing through them before his composure settled back. He hadn't expected her to know, not this deeply. This was the unseen thread pulled taut between them, vibrating with unspoken history. "You're right," he said, his voice barely audible. Some things are more important than reputation. His gaze held hers, an unspoken question, a silent challenge. What would you do now knowing this? Olivia felt the full weight of her decision. The ethical tightrope, the potential exposure of past corporate failings, but beneath it, a profound admiration for the man before her. She chose. We are launching the Aurora Initiative, she said, her voice firmer now, infused with a newfound conviction. It's a groundbreaking project, demanding innovative solutions and absolute integrity. I believe your experience, your insight, and your unique understanding of systemic vulnerabilities are precisely what we need. She pushed a crisp folder across the table. Ethan, I'm offering you the role of lead systems architect. It's a significant position. It would mean working alongside some of the very people who were part of Chrono Solutions and now work here at Sterling Tech. She watched his face, searching for a reaction. His expression remained unreadable, but a muscle twitched almost imperceptibly in his jaw. The implication hung in the air. You are coming back to the very echoes of your past, under the very company that silently absorbed your former life. This single act offering him this crucial role was bending the heart's path. It was subtle, profound, an unspoken invitation to step back into the world he had left behind. And it was irrevocably tied to a hidden memory, a corporate acquisition, and a painful truth that she, Olivia Sterling, had until this moment chosen to ignore. The deeper thread had been found, now waiting to be pulled. The air within Sterling Tower, usually thick with the hum of ambition, now carried a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. Ethan Vance, no longer merely a security guard, moved through its corridors with the calm authority of a lead systems architect. His presence, initially met with hushed curiosity and a few veiled glances, swiftly transformed into a subtle force. He did not boast nor demand attention. Instead, he observed, listened, and then, with precise understatement, offered insights that rippled through the complex systems of Sterling Tech. His brilliance was not loud, but deep, like the steady flow of an underground stream. He identified vulnerabilities others had overlooked, not with aggressive pronouncements, but with calm, logical explanations. He pointed out redundancies that bled resources, offering elegant solutions that trimmed fat without sacrificing essential function. His approach was empathetic, too, surprising many. When a junior developer stumbled, lost in a tangle of code, Ethan would appear, not with a critical gaze, but with a patient, guiding hand. He spoke in low tones, untangling complexities, or with a clarity born of profound experience and an understanding of human error. Olivia watched him, often from the periphery, her keen mind absorbing every detail. She noted the respectful nods from his colleagues, some of whom had worked with him at Chrono Solutions, now seemingly unburdened by the past. She observed the shift in the team's morale, a newfound collaboration that felt less like forced synergy and more like genuine camaraderie. Ethan's inherent empathy, so freely given, began to resonate within her, stirring a gentle warmth that softened the precise edges of her own often isolated leadership. One particularly grueling week, a critical system migration threatened to derail a major client launch. Tensions ran high, wires were frayed, and exhaustion hung heavy in the air. Olivia, herself stretched thin, felt the familiar prickle of a headache blooming behind her eyes. As she slumped in her chair, staring at lines of code that seemed to mock her with their complexity, a shadow fell across her desk. Ethan stood there, not with a report, but with a steaming mug. "Chamomile," he murmured, setting it down gently. "Helps with the edges." She looked up, surprised. He had noticed. Not her corporate persona, but the weariness beneath. It was a small deed, easily overlooked, but it settled something within her, a comfort she hadn't realized she craved. It was like a soothing balm on a subtle wound, mending an ache of solitude she often carried. Later that week, in a volatile executive meeting, a senior vice president aggressively questioned a critical security protocol Ethan had implemented, subtly implying past failures. The attack was veiled but pointed, dredging up the specter of Chrono Solutions without naming it. The room stiffened. Olivia felt her jaw clench, ready to interject. But before she could speak, Ethan's voice, calm and steady, cut through the tension. "The protocol is designed for resilience, not just efficiency," he explained, his gaze unwavering as he met the vice president's challenge. He didn't defend himself. He defended the system, the principle. Every line accounts for unforeseen variables, for the human element. His words were not combative, but carried the immense weight of experience, the quiet authority of a man who had seen the true cost of systemic failure. The vice president, disarmed by his composure and the undeniable logic, backed down. Olivia watched, a burgeoning pride swelling within her. He had defended her, in a way, by upholding the integrity she now sought to embody. Yet, even as these moments resonated, a deepening fissure began to appear. As Ethan delved into the legacy systems Sterling Tech had inherited from its acquisitions, his reports began to reveal uncomfortable truths. He found layers of patched-over code, undocumented vulnerabilities, and deeply flawed architecture that stemmed directly from the Chrono Solutions period. These were not mere technical issues. They were ethical compromises, shortcuts taken years ago to mask systemic weaknesses before the acquisition. One evening, he laid out a detailed diagnostic report on Olivia's desk. "Ms. Sterling," he said, his voice grave, "the original migration from Chronos was incomplete. There are backdoors, inherent design flaws that were deliberately obscured. It's not just a technical debt. It's a liability that could compromise all of Sterling Tech's current systems." Olivia stared at the glowing lines of the report, her face paling. The acquisition had been rushed, the due diligence perhaps less thorough than it should have been. Her predecessors, eager to absorb a competitor's assets, had swept too much under the rug. This was a core rupture within the company's very foundation. The very company she led, the ground she stood upon, was built, in part, on a secret history of systemic negligence and hidden compromises from the Chrono Solutions era. A history that Ethan, the man who had suffered its profound consequences, was now unknowingly bringing to light. His unassuming acumen, while mending one small wound of her personal isolation, was unveiling a corporate truth far more unsettling than she could have imagined. The diagnostic report lay spread across Olivia Sterling's desk, its glowing lines a stark indictment, the insidious network of hidden vulnerabilities, the obscured design flaws, the ethical compromises of a bygone era, all tracing back to Chronos Solutions. Olivia felt a cold dread seep into her bones, a realization that her gleaming empire, her carefully constructed world of innovation and progress, was built, in part, on a foundation of subtle deceit. The truth was a heavy stone in her hand, smooth yet unyielding. Her predecessors had allowed this festering wound to persist within the very infrastructure of Sterling Tech. And now, Ethan Vance, the man whose life had been irrevocably shattered by Chrono Solutions' original failure, was unknowingly exposing the continued rot. It was a cruel irony, a delicate yet piercing truth that tightened a knot in her chest. She paced the opulent expanse of her office, the city lights below a blur of indifference. Every solution that flashed through her mind felt tainted. To expose the truth fully would invite a storm, public backlash, shareholder fury, perhaps even legal repercussions. It could destabilize Sterling Tech, threaten her position. Yet, to bury it deeper, to allow these vulnerabilities to linger, was a betrayal of her own nascent conscience, a silent capitulation to the very darkness Ethan had emerged from. And then there was Ethan, his unyielding integrity, his unwavering gaze, his singular dedication to the system's truth. These qualities, once seen as mere assets, now became a moral mirror, reflecting her own choices. He had unknowingly become the conscience of Sterling Tower, a silent reminder of what true purpose meant. The following evening, a gentle rain began to fall, painting the city in muted hues. Olivia was still in her office when she heard a soft knock. It was Ethan. He stood framed in the doorway, his silhouette softened by the indirect light, holding a sheaf of additional data, his face calm, yet with an underlying gravity. "Miss Sterling," he began, his voice a low, steady murmur, "I've found further evidence of the architectural flaws. It's deeper than I initially reported. These aren't just bugs. They're fundamental design choices, shortcuts from the earliest days of Chronos. It needs a full, transparent audit, immediately." Olivia closed her eyes for a brief moment, the implications of his words pressing down. He wasn't just a systems architect. He was an unwitting truth-teller. He spoke with an urgency that conveyed his profound understanding, not knowing the full implications of what he was revealing, only understanding the fundamental need for integrity in code, in structure. She looked up, meeting his gaze. "Ethan," she said, her voice strained. "Come in, sit down." He took the seat opposite her desk, his posture relaxed, yet alert. The rain drummed softly against the glass, a rhythmic backdrop to the unspoken tension. "I know more than you think," Olivia confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "About Chrono Solutions, about its acquisition by Sterling Tech, about your family." The words hung in the air, raw and exposed. She watched him, bracing for anger, for pain, for withdrawal. A muscle in Ethan's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. His eyes, deep as an evening pond, held a flicker of surprise, then a profound sadness. He didn't flinch, didn't look away. He simply absorbed her words, his contained strength a palpable force in the room. "I imagined you might," he said, his voice softer than before, almost a sigh. "That's why I came back. To find a purpose, to ensure that kind of systemic failure, that kind of quiet neglect never happened again. Anywhere. My past is my burden, but perhaps also my lesson." Olivia felt a sudden, unexpected sting in her eyes. He wasn't blaming her. He wasn't raging against the injustice. He was speaking of lessons, of purpose. His dignity was immense, a towering presence she could only stand in awe of. "The acquisition was handled poorly," Olivia admitted, her voice raspy. "The due diligence on legacy systems was cursory. Our company inherited these flaws, and for years we've operated on them, patched them, but never truly addressed the root problem. We continued the negligence, unknowingly." The confession felt like a physical weight lifting from her chest, replaced by a cold, clear clarity. Ethan remained silent, his gaze steady, allowing her words to hang in the air, unjudged. "If we reveal this," Olivia continued, her voice gaining strength, "it will shake Sterling Tech to its core." The myriad consequences, unspoken, hung heavy in the air between them. "And if you don't," Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. "What then, Miss Sterling? Does a crack in the foundation not eventually bring down the whole tower?" His words, simple yet profound, resonated with the truth she had been avoiding. What she had sought in hiring him, a brilliant mind to solve technical challenges, had led her to something far greater, far more unsettling, and ultimately far more vital. She had sought efficiency, innovation, profit. She found integrity. She found a reckoning. In that calm, rain-soaked office, as the city hummed oblivious below, Olivia Sterling understood. What she had sought was not what she found. She thought she was hiring a solution to a technical problem. Instead, she had found a mirror reflecting the very soul of her company and her own. This was the true twist, the path leading to an unexpected home. Not a physical dwelling, but a moral foundation, a place of unyielding integrity she now knew she had to build, brick by painful brick, for Sterling Tech. The comfort wasn't in evasion, but in the terrifying, liberating clarity of ethical purpose. The morning after the quiet rain, a new light filtered into Olivia Sterling's office. It was not the sharp, demanding glow of ambition, but a clearer illumination, born of a difficult yet liberating decision. She had chosen integrity. The path ahead was fraught with risk and the potential for chaos, but it was a path aligned with the truth Ethan had unknowingly laid bare. Her first steps were precise, deliberate. A series of urgent yet carefully worded communications went out. Not a public announcement, not yet, but an internal call for an immediate, comprehensive audit of all inherited legacy systems. Her tone was firm, unwavering, leaving no room for questioning. She convened a select, trusted team, placing Ethan at its core. The sheer weight of her conviction was evident in her every action, every sharp, decisive glance. Ethan moved through these days with an unflagging resolve. He was not surprised by Olivia's decision, perhaps had even anticipated it. His hands, once those of a security guard, now deftly navigated the complex architecture of Sterling Tech, unearthing deeper layers of forgotten code, of buried shortcuts. He worked tirelessly, driven by a purpose far beyond a salary, an inner mandate to ensure no other life was shattered by the very kind of systemic neglect that had taken his own. Olivia and Ethan often found themselves late in the office, the city lights below mirroring the vast network of systems they were untangling. Their conversations were sparse, often punctuated by long stretches of comfortable silence, filled only by the soft click of keyboards and the distant hum of the building. But in those silences, a connection deepened, woven from shared purpose and a profound, unspoken respect. She witnessed his unwavering commitment, his calm resolve to face the ghosts of his past. He, in turn, saw her own emerging strength, her willingness to dismantle the very foundations of her empire for the sake of a deeper truth. One evening, as the last of the city's rush hour faded, Olivia brought them both lukewarm coffee. "This is monumental," she murmured, gesturing vaguely at the glowing screen filled with complex diagrams. The sheer scale of it. Ethan looked up, his eyes holding hers. "It is," he agreed, "but it's necessary. It's setting things right." His voice was soft, but the conviction in it was absolute. Setting things right. Those words resonated within Olivia. This wasn't about merely fixing a bug or increasing profit margins. It was about healing a wound, not just in the corporate structure, but in the unseen fabric that connected people, businesses, and lives. Her focus, once laser-sharp on acquisition and growth, had expanded to encompass something far more profound: responsibility, transparency, and an unyielding commitment to what was right. The journey ahead would be long. The revelations, when they inevitably came to light, would be painful. There would be questions, criticisms, perhaps even anger. But Olivia knew with a certainty that settled deep in her soul that this was the path she had to walk. And in Ethan, she found not just a brilliant mind, but a steadfast companion, a testament to enduring resilience, walking alongside her. Their hands didn't clasp, not outwardly, but in the silent understanding that passed between them, in the shared glance at the intricate code, in the silent acknowledgement of the immense task ahead, in the unspoken mutual respect for the burdens each carried. There was a deeper connection, a shared breath of peace. Healing was incomplete, for the echoes of the past lingered, but it was profoundly shared, a tender dawn breaking over Sterling Tower. It promised a future built on a stronger, more honest foundation, where the relentless pace of the corporate world now carried a different rhythm, a softer, more humane cadence, reflecting the inherent integrity of a new beginning. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope can be found in the most surprising moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heartwarming Love Story. We bring you stories that touch the soul, renew your belief in kindness, and highlight what's truly important in life.